There it is. What is easily the best Ghostbusters game? Which unfortunately isn't saying very much given this series' track records with its games, including some underwhelming titles that released after this one, but man did they get this one right. And there's no better way to show off this game's greatness than by starting off with the story for it, as it is considered the true Ghostbusters 3, with just about everyone from the original cast coming back to reprise their roles. But now for the actual plot of the game. Set 2 years after the events of the second movie, the Ghostbusters are in dire need of help, so they decide to recruit on a fifth member. This fifth member obviously being the player stand-in. A stand-in that I'm just now realizing is a bit of a missed opportunity that you couldn't customize him, or play as a female for that matter. But regardless, you join in on the continuing adventures of the Ghostbusters, as they return to locations from the movies, some of which feels a bit admittedly forced, like when you return to the Sedgwick to recapture Slimer, but other stuff is done really well, like when you go back to the library and finally get to capture the librarian ghost and it turns into this whole boss fight. But there are also new locations that you go to, like the Natural History Museum or Times Square. But then there's other crazy places you go to, like a completely different dimension or an entire island that comes out of the water. And well, the reason you're going to all these locations is because you need to shut down several Mandelas that are trying to merge the ghost dimension into ours. And I suppose it doesn't help that somehow Gozer has returned. So yeah, it's up to you and your team to save the day once again. And of course, this is all done by what else? Busting some ghosts. You'll run around with your plasma pack, shooting at them, weakening them, and then eventually capturing them, with the bigger the ghost being, the harder for them to be taken down. But you're not just going in with your simple plasma thrower, you're also going in with your trusty PKE meter. And with this thing, you're able to scan the environments to find ghosts hidden within, or to scan ghosts themselves so you could find out their weaknesses. But definitely best of all are the upgrades that you get to your pack, such as the boson dart, which allows you to shoot out a big ball of explosive protonic energy, or the cryo thrower that can freeze the ghosts, or even the slime blower, which allows you to use a slime tether which can be used to instantly capture ghosts. Yeah, no, there's a whole lot of cool stuff to use here. Stuff that you'll also be using in order to get through the levels, since there are obstacles you need to destroy or maybe a puzzle that needs figuring out before you can move on. But yeah, that more or less wraps up the gameplay. So the next mark I guess I'll hit is the graphics. And well, the graphics in this game are good. You know, cool world and ghosts and monster design. Although I will say I'm not the biggest fan of how the humans look. I mean, nothing too bad. The characters do look like their respective actors, but there's just something a little bit off about them. Like they look a little bit cartoony, if that's the right word to use. But again, not that big of an issue. This game did need to have fully realistic graphics. But anyway, with that done, now onto the music in this game. There being two types, the first of which being original music made for this game, and the second being some songs from the first movie. And I do only mean the first one, since I'm kinda disappointed they didn't use any music from the sequel. But I guess that's kind of understandable. So then that leaves the original music that was made specifically for the game. And well, all in all, it's actually pretty good. With some nice action-packed tracks for when you're fighting ghosts, or some creepy atmospheric tracks for when you're like alone in the dark, all of which fitting perfectly into your ghost-busting adventure. And well, that kinda covers everything I wanted to with this game. Well, everything except for the multiplayer, which immediately I know can be like dismissed, since a game like this didn't really need multiplayer, and it really easily could have been just tacked on for no real reason. But if I'm being completely honest, although I think the single-player campaign is still great, I just find the multiplayer to be the best part of this game, since it's just non-stop ghost fighting, with you running around a set of maps needing to either just get through waves of ghosts or trying to protect a certain thing, or maybe even trying to destroy summoners, and you're kinda always on your toes because the upgrades from single player are power-ups now, you don't just immediately get them, and they have limited ammo so you need to keep picking them up. Plus, there's just the simple novelty of being able to play as the actual Ghostbusters themselves. But seriously, for a multiplayer component that didn't really need to exist, this was very well put together, and not to mention a whole lot of fun. And I gotta say, it genuinely sucks that when this game got re-released for modern platforms, they didn't bring back the multiplayer. Unfortunately, due to, like, technical programming issues with it. But at least the original's servers are still up. Alright, now that covers everything I wanted to with this game. So yeah, this is just a solid game overall and a real treat for Ghostbusters fans. So this game takes place in 1991, but despite this, the World Trade Center doesn't appear in the opening cutscene. And I do 100% get that this was done without any, like, bad intentions in mind, but them not being there despite in that year they were still there just comes off as wrong to me. Since in a way something like this could imply that they were never there at all, and that's just wrong.